According to Ian McCollum and his popular YouTube channel called Forgotten Weapons, Germany's MG-34 was the world's first universal machine gun. Not only used by infantry, it could also be found in nearly all Panzers and Luftwaffe aircraft as well. An authentic MG-34 would cost over $20,000, and full-size non-functioning metal replicas are still over $500. So a few months ago, I started wondering if I could possibly make one of my own. It took a while to find a profile that could be used to make measurements for my project. I ended up using Pages on my MacBook to scale the drawing to real-life dimensions, and then printed and taped the sheets together. Since I'm doing this with an eye towards low cost, I'll begin by going through my garage and seeing what's available. I'll start with a few pieces of poplar, which is a really nice hardwood with pretty tight grain patterns and no knots. The receiver will be glued together from 3 pieces that are each 3/4 of an inch thick. Thinking ahead, I'll remove a small area from each of the sides just in case I want to add a recoil spring and charging handle in the future. A lot of what you see now will be trimmed away later. The final measurements of this part will be something like 20 inches by 2¼ and 2¼ inches. The glue and clamps will do most of the work holding this together. The nails are just additional help for alignment until it all dries. And also the nails are in areas that will be removed anyway, and not in the finished piece. The barrel for my MG-34 will be a piece of 3/4 inch electrical conduit. I made a snug fitting channel to keep it centered along the main axis of the wooden receiver. It's now day 2. The glue has dried, so I can get it just a little bit closer to the final shape. It's oversized right now, but with my table saw, I can trim it down to the dimensions I mentioned earlier. also used the table saw to form grooves and notched areas to help make it look less like a lump of wood and more like a machined piece of steel. The trigger assembly and pistol grip are in this shot, even though I haven't shown how it was made yet. I'll come back to that later, but it's here so I can fit some of the smaller detailed pieces. The receiver's lid is supposed to be a stamped piece of steel, but since I'm using Poplar, I'll cut out this small oval and glue another strip of wood behind it before gluing the sides and the bottom parts all together. The sides of the lid are left a little oversized and will be trimmed to their final dimensions on my table saw after they've dried. A bit of trimming with a sharp knife followed by sanding leaves me with a wooden top for the receiver. The lid is hinged just in front of the feed tray, and this little part will be glued to the receiver before being drilled and completed with the addition of a screw on each side. After a lot of sanding with 220 grit sandpaper, I began painting the parts with Rust-Oleum flat black spray paint. Many of the details I added seemed to get lost in the dark color. So after some wet sanding to smooth out the raised grain patterns from the first coat, I decided to switch to a lighter metallic color. Before I sprayed the new color, I used a little of Tamiya's modeling putty to smooth out a few imperfections. Once the bronze paint was dry, I moved on to weathering. A thin black wash to the inner corners and recessed areas, followed by a steelish silver color to points that stick out and might get nicked in real-world situations. Wait a second, where did those cool rivets come from on the receiver's lid, you might ask? Well, They're just simple upholstery tacks that happen to look awesome when you're trying to create the illusion of stamped steel. My expenses so far have been pretty low. Less than $10 in fact. $6 for the bronze spray paint, and maybe $3 for the little screws that I've used. The wood, the electrical conduit for the barrel, the black paint, the glue, and sandpaper were all things I already had. So I'm on track for another low-budget success story. The trigger group and barrel assembly will each have their own videos, which will come out very soon. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and until next time, this has been Bob's Workshop. Take care.